Yes, I'm Scott King. I was one of the, there's a couple of co-founders, but Dan and I started the company about 13, 14 years ago. We've been local to Denver and been growing steadily for the last 14 years. ReadyTalk's been named one of the best companies to work for, one of the best awards I know of because I feel like engaged employees create very satisfied customers. And I know there was some talk about culture being the first thing that's kind of a key characteristics of great companies, and at ReadyTalk we really believe that it's all about culture. But today's topic is really around webinars, and specifically focusing webinars on the sales pipeline and understanding how you can use webinars to move prospects and leads through the buying process to create customers. So first question I have is, how many of you today are using webinars in your marketing programs? So probably about 50%. This is one of the reports that Content Marketing Institute put together, and it shows about 62% of the companies doing B2B are using webinars for content marketing and for demand gen. So you're right with your peers in terms of using this. 2 years ago, that was 46%, so it's grown quite a bit over the last couple of years. So I'm going to go through 7 tips. The first one is making sure that you focus the content on the audience you're talking to. If you deliver too broad a topic or too diluted a message, it's not going to be good for anybody. So you have to think about who you're talking to, what the role of the buyer is, what the problems they're having. Importantly, what's the stage that they're actually in their evaluation or buying process, geography, and what industry are they in. The second tip is really delivering value. If you think about top of funnel in selling and in marketing, what you're trying to do is become a thought leader, creating content that helps bring your company into the conversation of the problems that customers are having. It might be content marketing, for example. Your thought leadership might be around how do you build content for the different buying stages or buying process for customers. That's a topic a lot of people are trying to figure out right now. So if you can start to communicate and become a thought leader in that, people are going to start to recognize your products, your brand for solving those kind of problems. So it's a pretty broad audience you're trying to go. It's casting a wide net. It's focusing on top of mind issues for those customers, and it's delivering real value in that type of content. So customers need to walk away from that information with real actionable intelligence. I was at Hewlett Packard for 15 years before I started in a startup environment, and one of the interesting things at the early days of HP is that we were all engineers selling test equipment, and we were the experts. The salespeople were the consultants, and customers would call us and ask us questions on how to solve problems. And we were the gatekeepers to knowledge for the customers to understand how to solve these problems. You look back at those days, and we'd have racks of data sheets and application notes in a closet, and we would file through that, hand it off to customers. We would fly out systems engineers and do online seminars, subject matter experts, but we were the keys to the information. You look at today, and the customers have access to all that information at their fingertips. And sales has been transformed overnight into being really at the back end of a buying process where the customer is already fully educated in terms of what they're looking at and what they're interested in. And if you're not playing a role in creating thought leadership about how your products can solve problems, your salespeople will never have a chance to engage with them. So this is a really important part for marketing, especially in B2B marketing, to make sure that you're going to be part of the conversation, and that customers, when they're ready, they're going to reach out to your salesperson, but they're already halfway through the decision process. And your salesperson is now taking a customer that may or may not have good information about the problem they're trying to solve, and then try to bring them back up and say, here's why we're better. So top of funnel, also consider bringing in experts into this conversation, because it's again, you've got to deliver information that's credible, that delivers value and that creates the connection between solving that problem and the products that you offer. One of the things that you definitely want to stay away from in this part of the sales process is pitching your product. If you're doing a thought leadership webinar and you start to go into a product pitch, you're going to lose credibility and you're going to lose the audience. So once you've built an interest with prospects and leads, now it's targeting that message to really being why your product for solving that problem. And so it's focusing on the solutions. This is where you can do product pitches. This is where you can bring in subject matter experts, or even better, bring in customers that are using your product to give you credibility and reduce the risk of customers going ahead with you on that solution. So you should focus this type of webinar on a much smaller audience. So these are clients that are actively investigating how to solve this problem. And it's a smaller group of people that you're going to be talking to. And what you want to do here, if you're promoting a webinar, be very explicit that we're going to do a demo. We're going to show you how to solve this problem. You're going to have less people attend that webinar, but they're going to be very interested in trying to figure out that solution. So you're showcasing why you're better. You're showcasing it with hopefully happy customers, and you're validating and delivering proof on why you can solve that problem. How many of you that raise hands on doing a webinar use chat or polling for engagement? A few. So one of the reasons you do this is to engage your customers in the webinar itself. The other reason you want to do this is to really start to qualify and understand what they're interested in. So you can ask questions that start to give you BANT. You can take a lead and put it into a qualified lead. You can start to understand what the customer needs are, and if they're not a qualified lead you're engaging with, you can still nurture and market to them based on that information. But what do you do with that information that you get out of the webinar? And if you don't have ways to integrate it into the systems that allow you to manage and measure the performance of that webinar, you're losing a lot of the value. So having the ability to very quickly say, this person's interested and they're at this actual buying stage in the process, and I'm going to start to message them with different content. That is all based on the systems that you have to deploy to be able to measure and manage where your customers are, where your prospects are in the buying process. The second thing is designing a webinar with reuse in mind. So thinking about if I'm going to spend the money and time and effort to put together a solid webinar, how do I make sure that I can get the most value out of that? And so you think about repurposing content right from the beginning. So you're thinking about, when I build a webinar, excuse me, I'm going to build it in a way that I can take parts of this webinar and repurpose it into other content. And so having a 45, 60-minute diatribe of 50 slides is not an easy way to repurpose content. If you were to have a moderator or a panel of speakers, subject matter experts, that's much easier to repurpose for other applications, blog posts, white papers, other things. So, and then also making sure that you're creating content that is messaging that your customers and prospects can message against. So you think about it when each of these slides have a consistent message that people can tweet, and it's really taking that and expanding it through social networks. And then basically taking content that has natural breakpoints. And so if you have sections that you can say, this part is going to now be a section that I can repurpose into a blog post or a white paper. And then lastly, repurposing that content. Our team put together an exercise saying, how can you take a webinar and how many pieces of content can you create out of that webinar? They came up with 19. I think they could have done 20. But I think 19 felt better on the document. But you think about it, taking the slides and publishing those to SlideShare and making that searchable. Taking a part of your webinar and making it into a blog post or making it into a recording that you promote a new webinar with, or taking the transcript and the recording of that webinar and making that actionable content on your website. There's lots of ways to repurpose content, and this is one of the biggest challenges marketers have, is creating the engine that supports your content marketing program. And so webinars are a great way, a great tool to create that content, and again, create it across the entire buying cycle for a customer. And then lastly, taking webinars and onboarding customers, the impact that you can have and the experience that you can deliver when you bring customers onto your service, onto your products right from the beginning. So it allows you to engage with customers in a live environment. It allows you to deliver on-demand content, either in an onboarding program or a training or best practices program. And it allows you to create advocates and champions for your company by really educating customers on how to use your technology and engaging with them in conversations through these online live trainings. And again, going back to one of the things you want to avoid is creating too broad a topic so that you're not really satisfying the needs of a particular consumer. So we actually have training and onboarding for a marketer around webinars. We have training and onboarding for collaborative users. So we don't combine those because the message gets diluted. That's great. I'll be around this evening if you have any questions. And again, I appreciate your time and interest.